Well, this is a sad story we have covered over the last week, and community leaders and residents in Harlem continue to pay their respects to a little 4-year-old boy who prosecutors say was starved to death by his own parents. The Reverend Al Sharpton and others held a prayer service at the little boy's building. New York 1's Norlane Kawaja has the story from Harlem.
A family and community in mourning. Relatives of JAHMEIK MODLIN, including his grandmother, gathered to honor the life of the 4-year-old boy who was allegedly being starved, according to prosecutors.
If we are a community, we need to embrace each other in our pain.
The Reverend Al Sharpton walked hand in hand with JAHMEIK's family members from his National Action Network headquarters on Saturday to the Harlem apartment where JAHMEIK was found unconscious and unresponsive earlier this week. There, the group, including community leaders and advocates against domestic abuse, gathered to pray and lay a wreath. Prosecutors say fresh food was found inside the home. However, the refrigerator was turned to the wall and the cabinets were secured with child safety locks. Stephanie McGraw runs a nonprofit organization in Harlem, helping women and children who've survived domestic violence. She believes JAHMEIK's death is a wake-up call for community members.
Together we can stand and come together, support this family, and let the community know if you are in distress. Reach out to us. We're here. We have services that can help you. But we have an opportunity now to take this tragic moment and hopefully we can save another life and prevent this from happening.
The DA's office says JAHMEIK's 3 siblings are so malnourished, they're now on a liquid diet and cannot eat solid foods. A concern for some community members about their safety, too.
I just hope the other siblings find either family or another family that's willing to take them in, because that's just out of control. That's out of control.
As the community continues to lean on one another, Reverend Sharpton has offered to pay for JAHMEIK's funeral.
I don't know what happened, but I know this young boy did not deserve to starve to death. But I know he's going to have a decent funeral and a decent burial. And we're going to fight for his grandmother to be able to stand with her head held high.
The parents, 26-year-old Natavia Ragsdale and 25-year-old W.A.R.M Modlin, were arrested earlier this week. They're facing charges including criminally negligent homicide and endangering the welfare of a child. Norlane Kawaja, New York 1.
A community unites to support the family of a 4-year-old boy who police say was starved to death by his own parents. As Christine Sloan reports, the day started with a prayer service at the Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network in Harlem.
Inside the National Action Network, the grandmother of the little boy overwhelmed with grief. Flora Jones comforted by her 2 adult children. Her attorney says she can't comprehend how her estranged son and the mother of her 4-year-old grandson could severely neglect him and his 3 siblings.
We're investigating this matter. What we're anticipating to do is to investigate to make sure no stone is unturned related to what happened to this family.
Prosecutors say JAHMEIK MODLIN weighed only 19 pounds at the time of his death. Investigators say the boy's malnourished 5-, 6-, and 7-year-old siblings never attended school and were isolated from the rest of the family, who on Saturday marched with Sharpton to a memorial at the building where the 4-year-old died. They placed a wreath there in his memory.
I do not want to say what should have, could have been done yet, but I know that this family should not be mourning alone.
Some building residents say the charged parents, 26-year-old Natavia Ragsdale and 25-year-old W.A.R.M Modlin, never brought their children out, and that Ragsdale didn't look right.
Not maintaining herself with hygiene.
People knew she had kids because she said she had kids, but to see the kids, no one never seen the kids.
To prevent this from ever happening in our community.
The organization W.A.R.M, which stands for We All Really Matter, is helping Jones gain custody of the other children who remain in the hospital.
And we know that if we cannot shine a light to domestic violence and mental illness, what is a silent killer.
And we need you to step up, community. Yes. Because if you see something, what you're supposed to do? Say something.
The Reverend Al Sharpton says his network will be paying for JAHMEIK's funeral. That funeral has not been scheduled. In Harlem, Christine Sloan, CBS News, New York.
At home, relatives, advocates, and neighbors gathered in Harlem today to remember the 4-year-old boy found unresponsive inside of an apartment on Sunday. The medical examiner says 4-year-old JAHMEIK MODLIN died from malnutrition and starvation, weighing just 19 pounds. His mother and father are now charged in his death. According to the criminal complaint, his mother said she fed the little boy small portions because he couldn't keep his food down. A prayer service was held this afternoon in front of that apartment. Reverend Al Sharpton, other community leaders joined JAHMEIK's extended family hand in hand.
So we wanted to unite as a community.
That's right.
To say that we will not stand by and see a 4-year-old child die.
We will not allow this death to be in vain.
JAHMEIK's parents, 25-year-old W.A.R.M MODLIN and 26-year-old Natavia Ragsdale, are charged with manslaughter and endangering the welfare of a child. A spokesperson with the Administration for Child Services said the agency is investigating along with the NYPD. We are also told JAHMEIK's other siblings are safe.
Thank you, Duarte. Well, turning locally now, the horrific death of a 4-year-old boy in Harlem has the community joining together, calling for an end to neglect. Authorities accuse the parents of starving their child to death. Fox 5's Jessica Formosa takes us to the emotional vigil.
The photos of 4-year-old JAHMEIK MODLIN are surrounded by candles and teddy bears outside his home. The little boy died earlier this week, allegedly at the hands of the people who were supposed to protect him. His parents. According to the medical examiner, JAHMEIK was starved to death.
It's sad. It's very sad. Talk to a young child. If she could have just gave the baby to somebody to care for.
Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network holding a prayer service Saturday morning in honor of the little boy.
I don't know what happened, but I know this young boy did not deserve to starve to death.
It was on Monday when police found JAHMEIK unresponsive inside this 6th-floor apartment in Harlem. His mother, 26-year-old Natavia Ragsdale, and his father, 25-year-old W.A.R.M MODLIN, arrested and charged with manslaughter and endangering the welfare of a child. Sources tell Fox 5 social services had previously visited the home. According to court documents, JAHMEIK only weighed 19 pounds. The chief medical examiner describing the child's condition as chronic. The details of what was going on inside their apartment are shocking and disturbing. In the criminal complaint, it states that the couple lived in the apartment with 4 children, a 7, 6, 5-year-old, and JAHMEIK, who was 4. The mother telling police JAHMEIK had been vomiting up all his food and then eating his vomit. She also told authorities that none of her children have ever been enrolled in school. The 3 other children, also severely malnourished, they were taken to the hospital and are now under the care of ACS.
Somebody saw something and they didn't say nothing.
Stephanie McGraw is the founder and CEO of W.A.R.M, which stands for We All Really Matter, a domestic violence organization. She's been helping out the family.
We failed that child, every single last one of it, because it was something that somebody could have said. It was something that somebody could have seen. 2 years and the baby starved of salvation, and we live in the richest country in the world.
Saying his death will not be in vain.
And we're going to talk about a stigma that is still killing us, domestic violence and mental illness, because it was mental illness involved in this baby losing his life.
And Reverend Al Sharpton says the National Action Network will be paying for the boy's funeral. In Harlem, I'm Jessica Formoso, Fox 5 News.
Now to the latest on that heartbreaking story out of Harlem, where a 4-year-old boy starved to death, and the very people who were supposed to protect him are charged in his death. Dozens gathered at Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network for a prayer service for JAHMEIK MODLIN. Eyewitness News reporter Janice Yu has more on today's service in honor of little JAHMEIK.
Community members gathered at the National Action Network Saturday morning, just about a block away from an apartment where a 4-year-old boy was allegedly starved to death by his own parents.
We can't have a house of justice and ignore 4-year-old kids starving to death right in our neighborhood.
Authorities say JAHMEIK MODLIN fell unconscious in his Harlem home on Sunday. The boy was just 19 pounds, suffering from chronic starvation, malnutrition, and dehydration. And just a few days later, his parents, Nitavia Ragsdale and LaRon MODLIN, were arrested, charged with manslaughter and endangering the welfare of a child. The 4-year-old's grandmother, Flora Jones, and his aunt and uncle overcome by the devastating death. An organization called W.A.R.M is now guiding the family through its next steps. The couple's 3 children, ages 5, 6, and 7, are malnourished and currently in the hospital.
She is fully available and ready and able and healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally to take her 3 remaining grandchildren. 1 had to go, but there's 3 more right here.
Stephanie McGraw, who's the founder of W.A.R.M, says those who live in the community should have seen the red flags. And she's now calling on people to look out for one another to prevent a tragedy like this from happening again.
We live in a me world. It's not about me. It's about we and us as a united front, as a community, to stop this violence. I can't do it by myself. Reverend Al can't do it by myself. It's going to take all of us to stop this violence in our community.
We're told JAHMEIK's body has not been released from the medical examiner's office yet, but once that does happen, a funeral will be held for the 4-year-old. In Harlem, Janice Hugh, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.